Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and this is just a little bit of a look at some Kipper cards because I needed to pick up a replacement for my deck, and I wanted to kind of compare those as well as compare some other things, which is funny because my friend Chris, who is Greek, and he has a channel, he's much like me. We love Lenormand, Kipper, Sibylla, like playing cards, like anything cartomancy, especially these style of decks. He just put out a video as well about Kipper, and so I will put a link below on that. I messaged him this morning and I was like, I saw you did. I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, but I saw that you did it. I've got one on the table because this just came in today. So the reason that I want to do a quick little comparison is because I actually have a book coming. There's a book in English on Kipper that as far as I'm aware, that's the only, or that might be the first English book on Kipper as far as I'm aware. When I first got this original Kipper deck, there weren't any books on Kipper in English. I used Google Translate for the guidebook. The person whose name was, I think it's Michael. It looks like kind of like Michael with a K, but I know it's not pronounced that way. He had an amazing channel. He was like third generation, Lenormand Kipper German fellow, and he had a bunch of videos on Lenormand and Kipper, and so I learned a lot. His channel since unfortunately been taken down because it was such a great resource, but that's where I learned Kipper as well as Google translating the guidebook. But this book is coming out. I'm not, recommending it yet because I don't have it. It should be here, I think, tomorrow possibly. Of course, I'll have to give it a good read and everything like that, but I'll do a review of it once I get it and have a chance to read it, obviously. But one of the things that I did notice in the description of the book and some of the pages that I was able to read is that, in general, Kipper... Now, a lot of people heavily use directions in Lenormand, directionality, which way things are facing, what is the flow of the story, where I use a lot more proximity in Lenormand, what's touching the significator, what's touching the significator, and yes, and more of the flow from left to right, and that type of flow, for me, is more what I do with Lenormand. Kipper is much more heavily on actual directionality of the cards, and in this book she she talks or works heavily with that concept of what are stop cards, what are movement cards, what are change of direction cards. And so of course with that you need to be paying attention to what direction the cards are looking in. And so because that's coming, I also want to kind of, when I do a quick flip through of this one, I want to compare it to the original to see how the directionality goes, because some decks, there's not very many Kipper decks. I have the original. The Mystical Kipper is problematic for that. There's a couple things that are problematic about the Mystical Kipper. I still like it. I still occasionally use it, but I don't very often. This is my primary Kipper deck. The Fin de Siecle by Marchetti is my primary deck. The only negative to this is that it's not playing card size. For me, that's the only negative. So let's look a little bit closer in as to why I picked up this particular deck. I purchased this version, which is the original edition from Marchetti when it first came out. I think before it actually was, I think I pre-ordered it. And because I was so excited to have a new Kipper deck. There's not too many Kipper decks. And plus, I absolutely love, some of Marchetti's works are very, very bold in color. That's not a criticism, it's just a style. But this deck is actually it's still very vivid, but it's much more muted and natural color tones. That it's just a stunning deck. We're going to go over that in a minute, so I'm not going to try to go through them all. But you can see my edges here. Now, This was not edged, and I blacked the edge myself. Actually, I've done it multiple times. But you can see, I mean, I use this deck a lot. I riffle shuffle it a lot. And what had happened was right after the day that I got this deck, and it was a $45 deck because it was the limited edition and before it went mass market. It just, you know, that's what it was. And I was, you know, just well worth it to me. There's not a lot of Kipper decks. But the day that I bought it, Isabel was still quite small. I edged it and then I went to shuffle it and I dropped it. And she was so fast, and this one you can really see. She was so fast, and her little tiny teeth just gnawed into almost every single one of the cards. There are some little thing, but of course, on top of chewing it, she slobbered all over it. So some of the, you know, edging, because it was just, I literally just finished edging it. So it's definitely, what it looks like right now is not the fault of Ciro Marchetti, and I quite love it. I mean, it's well used. I use it continually. Like I said, my Kipper readings that I do are actually quite popular, which is something I'm really happy to see. So I get a lot of use out of it, but in the combination of Isabel having chewed it and gotten things wet, I think that just makes, and then that I do riffle shuffle. So anyways, while I quite love this, I also do fear that this is really going to start to get a mess. And to be honest, it's very dear to me because I have done so many readings with it, and because it has a little baby Isabel teeth in it, that I kind of want to keep it in, you know, I don't want the actual cards to start peeling or chipping away. I do like well-used decks, but I am concerned about the integrity of this one because there were so many piercings into the decks, and like I said, almost every card has her little teeth in it. So I'm going to retire that away to my own personal readings and to, you know, sweetness and cute history. Well, actually, I should leave this out for a minute. So that's why I decided it was time to pick up the mass market edition of the Fin de Siecle Kipper deck, fortune telling deck by Ciro Marchetti. And, you know, I love this tuck box. It's, you know, it's very similar setup to the Gilded Reverie. It comes with the little guidebook, which this did not. This came with a PDF guidebook. So obviously this is a US Games deck, and it does come with a little guidebook, which is nice to have with the meanings. Again, especially since there are so little in English for Kipper, it's nice to have those here. I don't really use the guidebook because I was already reading Kipper before I got this deck, but it's good to have that there. And it's cute, you know, one of those nice little cute ones. Let's see what's in the back for actual reading. I don't know if I've done that one before. Suzanne's SOS spread, created for emergencies. Okay. Triple pyramids. I've definitely done pyramid spreads, although I've never done 3 of them. So there's that reading in there, and then this is an SOS. We might give that one a try. Kipper I read very specifically, which I'll show you at the end of this. I've got videos about it, but love the box, love the little guidebook, and so, but the important thing is obviously the cards. Now, the one downside I can see right away is that these are glossy, which makes color really pop, obviously, but I don't like the shine, you know, compared to this beautiful matte cardstock. I'm not a huge fan of glossy. Size-wise, they are the exact same size. Again, really wish these were playing card size, because if I wanted to do a grand tableau, and every once in a while I do have customers that request a grand tableau with Kipper instead of Lenormand, and then I have to use another deck because in my video space, reading space, I simply couldn't do a grand tableau with this size card. So that's, for me, the only negative to this deck is the size. Most of the time it doesn't matter for the way that I read Kipper, but you know, it's the exact same setup. We've got the, you know, numbering at the top. We've got the font at the bottom slightly smaller. But other than that, they really look quite similar. I mean, he does an amazing job in terms of printing. So, you know, there's maybe slight vibrancy because of the gloss, but not really. I mean, to my eye, this may be slightly more, slightly darker perhaps in the shadows. Yeah, I would say maybe slightly darker with the gloss. Just kind of richer tone, but for the most part it's pretty close. And again, the titles have been reduced obviously so that they can fit down here versus staying a little bit upright from that indent in the border. They've made it smaller, which I quite like. So I'm, you know, the gloss is, yeah, that's disappointing because I do love this gorgeous matte. It's just beautiful. So there are times that I will probably still pull this out because of that. But, oh, let's see, other than that, it does have gilding. So the original deck did not have any edge. I blackened the edge. So this has a silver gilding like the Gilded Reverie is gilded. It feels really nice. There's no sticking right off the bat. I'm not feeling any kind of stickiness from cards sticking together from the gilding. So US Games did a really good job with that. The backs are the exact same. Again, other than obviously the gloss coating there. So there we have that. I just want to take a quick spin through these while I have them out and just look at directional things. So here we have the main male. And again, I have a walkthrough of this deck, so probably most people aren't even going to, it's kind of for myself, but I might as well stick it up. So we have the main male looking face forward, body more to the right, to the left here, but he's still twisted slightly to the left. Female, the main female here, she is again looking at the outward of the image, but body definitely pointing to the right. We have the marriage card. Now, Chiru Marchetti's deck does change some of the titles. I haven't found that to be a problem. These we do actually have looking outward, which she is looking outward. He kind of looks like he might be looking at her, but still we do have outward facing people and we have outward facing people. Boy, it's windy out there. I don't know if you can hear that. Here we have the male and the female, the courtship card or the meeting card. We have her looking out. Actually, they're both looking out of the frame, whereas he's obviously looking at her. We do still have Cupid. We still have Cupid. And we have them switched. So which side the man and the woman on is switched. So that could change some directionals, but again, I just follow what's in the cards themselves. But at least in terms, they're seated. They're not going anywhere. Same thing here with the mature man or the good lord. I think it's good hair, good sir, good mister, maybe good lord. With the mature man here looking outward. He is seated instead of standing, but we still have that sense of looking out of the card. As with the mature woman, dressed in blue, she's beautiful. She's kind of looking strange. Her eyes are kind of strange. Here we have the letter. We do have a hand here, but pretty much the letter is just sitting there. And so, you know, to me, directionally that works. The false person is looking out of the card, which one of her eyes is. The other one you could kind of say maybe coming from that direction. You do have a door over here, which you don't have, you can't see anyways here. So if you were saying that falseness was coming from this side, but she is very primarily here, so you could certainly, you could still get that if you understood, okay, she's coming from over here and moving in this direction, but both are looking outward. Here we have the change card with the row of horses or houses here, and we've got the vehicle or the cart going in the same direction. We have the journey card going in a different direction. So obviously this one is heading off that direction. The train is heading off this direction. So we definitely have a directional shift here. Again, generally when that occurs, I just follow the direction. If you're going to follow the direction of the train, just follow the direction of the train. You're still going to get the messages that you need to get. So, you know, that's going to happen with cards. So it would have been nice if it had been going the same as the traditional, but it's certainly, that's the first one I think that's just really completely shifted the direction of something. Here we have the sudden wealth. So we have a sort of a bank vault here with kind of money or money that could come out. And, you know, we've got money coming out frontward. So that to me is the same. Here we have the privileged lady looking towards the card, or looking out of the card, I should say. She doesn't look like she's going anywhere. She does actually look like she's walking in that direction, whereas she's really just sitting there. But she could also just be standing there posed, which they're both kind of posed looking. Same thing with the wealthy man. He's looking very debonair. He's looking, I'm sure, debonair for his time. And again, both looking outward. We have the messages of concern here. Both of them are looking again out of the card. We've got the window there. The window is definitely more to the left here, but they're both looking in actually the same sort of rightish direction outward. The Lover's card with the two doves here, which we do still have two doves here, and we have the lovers embraced here, just sitting on a wall, not moving. Very similar, even though we do have the addition of actual lover statue. We have his thoughts. You know, he's kind of sideways looking, like he could be looking at the painting of her, so it's a little bit different. But they're both kind of just standing there. He's got his hand in his pocket. He doesn't really look like he's going anywhere. Neither one of them look like they're going anywhere to me. We have the gifts being presented forward, and she's kind of looking straight at us and presenting, although we can certainly see a door where it may be coming from. That's certainly coming from. The body is over here. So, you know, if I was going to really be forced to pick a direction here, I certainly could, and it would be the same. We have the child who is actually kind of looking up, as is she. She's certainly not looking straight out, but the child is definitely moving in this direction on the stork card here, or on this like heron or stork. Definitely moving in that direction, whereas she's just standing there kind of looking a little bit upward. We have the coffin. They're both kind of slanted in the same direction. You do have, obviously, the head of the coffin has been swiped around, but you could still get the same angled movement if for some reason you were going to use it in that manner. We have the house. Now the house is pointed, but I don't think the house is going anywhere. It's not a moving card, so that's okay. Here we have the family room. I don't think that's a window. That seems to be more of a painting, but if it is a window, we do have a window. We actually still have a red couch. You know, again, I don't think the family room's moving anywhere. Now, here we have the officer, the military person, the official person. He's the one who says, this is how it's going to be, right? Again, we see them both posed very similarly. We do see a door in the background and a door in the background. He's definitely looking out. He could be kind of looking off this way, but I will say with the original, sometimes it's hard to see, at least from my eyes, where the eyes are looking, and sometimes they're a little bit askew. But, you know, pretty similar. Again, this isn't really a movement card. Here we have the courthouse. We can see the courthouse behind. We have the person in front, kind of looking vicious. this-ish way, so is he looking that way. So again, quite similar. Here we have the Thief. Now, this one could be seen as being quite different, but I actually think this is very similar directionally. So obviously, he is taking from the safe over here, right? He's taking from the safe, and he's going to take off over that way. That seems pretty clear. And same thing here. He's taking from the pickpocket to the left, and he's going to go off right stage, right? I'm assuming he's going to run that way. He's not going to run this way. So it's actually quite directionally, it's similar. You could look to what's being taken from and look to your card over here, and what's going to be sort of, what's going to have the ramifications of that could be over here to the right. So very similar. Now, the high honors, we don't really get that directionality as clearly as we do. We do have that sense of movement from a small estate to a large estate in the original. And that's not something that you actually get visually here. But on the other hand, you certainly get that understanding. They're sounding off a salute, you know, a gun salute. To honor somebody, and so we do have that sense of a moving upward here. So to me, this isn't very difficult to read in that manner, because you have an upward movement, a movement from here to here, a movement up. You just know you're moving upward. So that to me, while visually you can't see it, we can, I think, easily mentally see it. Here we have fortune card here, great fortune, good luck, great wonderful things. You know, she's a wonderful card to get, and she's spilling her fortune down below. So the same sort of motion going on there. We have the unexpected income. Now, this is interesting because we have an exchange, right? There's actually an exchange going on. Somebody who obviously has less, given the tattered, you know, of his shirt, and then somebody with more kind of giving that, and the money's just kind of dropping into the hand. Here we just have somebody standing here, really not a lot of motion. Money's just sitting on the table. He does have his hand in his right pocket, but the money's over here on the left. Again, really not movement going on here, whereas this, you've got that kind of money dropping down. Where's it going to come from, and what's going to impact maybe below? So, whereas here, I don't really see this. I'll be interested to see what the book, if the book has this as a movement card, because nothing's really or directional card, because I don't really see a lot of direction here. Other than, you could say the money's from on the right. So where is that coming from here? And he's kind of looking this way. As with most things, again with Lenormand decks, you're going to see riders going in various directions. You're going to see scythe that could swing in various directions. I have over time just gotten certain directions built into my head. I read quite directionally to the grand tableau versus to the individual cards, because deck by deck that can change. So you can do one of two things. You can understand traditionally and or to your own experience where the direction of cards go, and just apply that regardless of what you could even leave, in a movement card, you could, let's say we wanted this card to be moving to the right, you could put a little red dot to whatever direction it's heading. Very simple fix there, and so that no matter what the image says, directionally you can read it how you tend to read them. Or you just go with what's on the card itself. I mean, card reading is about synchronicity, and so the message will come, right? As long as you're applying things, if you're using this deck all of the time, and you're always reading to see, oh, that unexpected money might come from, just give us a clue up here where it might be coming from, and how that might impact us might be down below. if you're consistently reading it that way, it's going to be just as accurate as if you were consistently reading it in another direction, right? The traditional movements don't necessarily magically impact the deck of cards, in my opinion. What impacts is consistency, and I say that over and over again, and I know that gets annoying. However, I think it's important and it's worth saying over and over again. The key is to define your set of parameters and apply those consistently. And that is the key to clear and accurate readings, not any one specific way being right or above the others. It's about how you consistently apply that. And I think that's a really important point to get across. So there we have that. So I wouldn't really say this one is problematic, simply because I don't really see a direction in this particular thing, because this is just the other part of the table. So, you know, I don't really see this being a super directional card. Whereas this one I actually do. I think this adds direction, which is kind of cool. Here's the patience card, or the expectation card, or the her thoughts card, however you want to say that. I love that they're looking, you know, again, they're both looking. This is very similar, actually. This is one in which the mystical Kipper really changes the direction I think she's peeking out from. It's a very strange. In the mystical Kipper, this card is a strange one. She's like inside of a house, but she's large, and she's like, you got this kind of big face looking out of the window. It's very strange. Whereas this one has her looking off. You can see the kind of castle here. You can see the castle here. You definitely get her thoughts. Does he live there? Because, you know, in Kipper you have a his thoughts and a her thoughts. And I have videos on Kipper, so I'm not trying to go too far into this. But you have his thoughts, you know, he's painting her, he's thinking about her, he's planning, he's figuring out, you know, can I get her back, maybe, right? Here's her, is she looking off to this house, and that's where he lives, and she's thinking about him. But yeah, so you have her thoughts and his thoughts, and so that's what these cards, even though it's the expectation or patience, I think I've heard it as patience card, but expectation card. Okay, so we have that. Now we have the prison or imprisonment. This brings it down, which is kind of interesting, because in many ways Kipper is known as being much more personal, much more in the personal space in many ways. And here we actually have that really kind of Ciro Marchetti really zooming in on that idea of being imprisoned, right? Versus just seeing a kind of cold prison here. We actually can see the person who is imprisoned here. Generally by some choices and bad decisions that you may have made. But again, there's really no movement except for the movement of this soldier or guard, the prison guard. But the bars of this are, if you do use that, I don't use that as that guard as of directionality. If you did, obviously he's going this way, and I feel like even the prison is actually the front of this cell is facing in that same direction. So I think if you use that as a direction, you certainly could. Here we have the adjudication here. Now in the German deck, we actually have, this is the court person. I think that's how it's actually labeled, but it's the court person. So it is an actual person, like a judge, say. You know, this would be the judge. Whereas the name has been changed to adjudication, which is more something that's happening, right? A matter is being adjudicated. I don't even know if that's a word. But there is a matter that is being tried in court, or being mediated, so to speak, right? So it's less on this one, though. The emphasis is placed on the matter that is being adjudicated versus the actual court person. So that's quite an interesting change. But I think, again, it's pretty, you know, the judge is pretty simple. And I think that the meaning still is fairly the same. In terms of movement, we do have her obviously looking in this direction. We have him looking at her, which he is still looking at her. But she is definitely looking like she's facing that direction, as well as this official person facing that direction. I don't see this so much, again, as a directional card, but you could see, okay, what's going to be the outcome over here? Whereas here, he is still looking in this direction, so you could still look at that in that way. Next, we have the bad health. This is one that I think is interesting and actually a little bit problematic, because the original is a short illness. And that's important, right, to understand that, because this card is just bad health. That is a different meaning than a short illness. Now, let's take a look. I just read it as a short illness, and I just say that in a reading. This isn't, you know, the bad health seems to be a lot more, yeah, now this does indicate with more favorable cards, it can be something minor and short-lived. With a difficult card, it could be more serious, like if you had it with a coffin card or something like that, if you read for health. But it is that idea of it's a short illness, you need to rest, right? You need to rest and recover. Whereas bad health does have that sort of connotation, it's kind of open-ended, like, oh dear, this is just bad health. So I do prefer the short illness. I think I do think that this changes somewhat the connotation of a short illness versus bad health, the title there. Now again, because I already know that this is a short illness, also she's in her house. She's not in like a hospital ward, and that again changes. But again, doctors used to make house calls. For the most part, that's not the case anymore. For the most part, I'm sure somewhere somebody does that, but that doesn't happen very often. So I guess you can also see that as a modernization into the Victorian times. But I do wish that the title change had not happened. Here we have Despair for number 32. I would not see Despair as a movement card, because I actually think Despair sort of sticks you and traps you. So I don't really see it as a movement card or really a directional card. Although given this, he is stepping in this direction, so I suppose you could look for maybe relief over here. I think you can do that irregardless for this one. So this one doesn't really bother me too much here at all. And I think that they both give off that idea. I think this is a really wonderful, sad, but a really good depiction. This, I think, is, it's like grief and anxiety, or grief and, I could be wrong here. I should probably, I don't know. I don't know German, and I don't speak it, but it's like grief and despair, or grief and adversity, or something like that. And so I think Despair works for that as well. So we have that. Now here we've totally changed direction. We do have Concern. Again, not a movement card in my opinion. You can use this T on the wall. Where is something coming from? Where is it going? How is this affecting you? You can use different things, right? So I think that is something that just develops over the usage of these cards with these images. When Kipper was, for quite a long time after Kipper came out, this is the only deck that would have been there. And so you start to use what you see to be able to create these directionalities. And so I think that you can easily do the same thing, again, applying it consistently with a different deck. So here you might have, he's definitely concerned. They both have their eyes closed. They're facing in different directions, right? But we can see the light coming through. So relief might be up here where the light is shining through. When he gets up and goes to do something, he's going to go in this direction. So what could he go to do perhaps here? What's behind him? I think, again, while it may not be, it may be flipped from the image here. which I do, you know, the wish is obviously if a system uses directionality as much as Kipper does, the wish is that obviously when somebody creates a new Kipper deck that they keep those traditional motions and directions in place for somebody who may have read for a very long time directionally with the original. It doesn't get all swapped around, because I really didn't read with this very long before I was reading with this one. This has been my primary deck. I'm quite used to this, so I can look at that directionality and see the light shining in, and you know what's from gone on behind, and that kind of thing. So it's just what you get used to. And again, I don't think there's any inherent magic to the direction of this card. It's just that's what people got used to reading off of, and it's not going to change anything if you consistently do it from this direction. I'm just trying to make that really clear, because I do think that becomes problematic. Sometimes people dismiss decks because they have changed somewhat. And again, I actually totally understand that. If somebody is really used to, and they have read for 10, 15 years on one set of directions, it would be really frustrating to have a new deck come out, be so excited that there's a new deck, but have the directions all whopper-jawed. Like, I get that would be very frustrating. If you're new to it, it's a little less problematic, because you can simply work off of two things, as I said, work off of the card that you're looking at, or mark the cards. It's very simple. If this is very important in the traditional reader that this work motion be going this direction, stick a little dot over here on this direction. It's quite simple of a fix, in my opinion, to do it one way or the other. But I do recognize why some people would find it frustrating. Oh, well, so we wouldn't even talk about this, though. But this is the occupation card. You know, this person is obviously working. She's hard at work at her occupation. Here we have the pathway. They're both going off in the same direction, which is nice, because I think that this is certainly one. This is where you're coming from. This is where you're going to, right? That is, now this one you could literally do. I think I actually read this more. This is where you're coming from, and this is where you're going to, because it seems that bright light right there. But you could see this curving off to the left if that was something that you were used to working with. It's beautiful. Here we have, oops, oh, these are the extra ones. Yeah, I was going to say, whoops, I missed something up. But the title of this is like Big Hope, Great Water, something like that. Again, this is not, please don't take this as a literal translation. I do not speak German. But it's like Big Hope, Great Water, or Great Hope, Big Water, something like that. But it's that idea of, the horizons are limitless, right? It's our hope. It's that what's out on the new horizon, right? What is that possibility? But we still have the anchor there. Do we let that anchor go and fly off? I love this card, because it does to me speak of our dreams and the things that we want to reach for, just as going off into the ocean does. But it's just something obviously I just am a huge proponent of flying ships. I love them. So for me, this works really well. The name has changed to Distant Horizons, whereas I feel like this name does imply the meaning a little bit better. But it's still there, that idea of leaving that anchor behind and sailing into the air. I mean, it's kind of obvious to me what it means. So I think that helps as well. We really don't have, even though this is a motion card, we don't really have anything moving here, right? We do have the sun coming up over here. The sun is coming up over here. Here we can actually see where is it going. It's going in this direction, so you could use that directionality there if you so choose. So there we have it. Now this deck actually has some extra cards. Now I've done both. I have used these cards, and I do quite like them in terms of, here we have, let me zoom out a little bit. Here we have occupation, which is a job, it's a business that you're trying to build up. It's your job. It's a job that you don't hate. It's what you're working towards, right? Whereas this is toil and labor. This is like that job that, can I just I just need to get through this. It's paying my bills right now, but it's not a job that you want to stick with. That can be really helpful to have versus occupation, which is just kind of generic in terms of your job. I do like the community card because, you know, we have the garden card in Lenormand. We don't really have anything in, you know, we have meeting, but that, you know, tends to be more people. You don't tend to have sort of a communal, getting out there in society, networking, that kind of energy in the Kipper cards. But people used it for generations, obviously, without that. But I do like the concept of that community card. And then we do have poverty, of course, to counterbalance the wealth. There's actually quite, you know, we have, let me pull them out here. Well, even a gift is, you know, getting good things. We have sudden wealth. There's another one, unexpected. Never where you want. We have great fortune, unexpected income, right? So you do actually have quite a lot of good things coming your way. And sometimes that's not the case, right? Sometimes you're feeling a little bit poor. And so I can see where that's kind of a nice balance. I mean, we do have the jail or imprisonment, but that's a little bit different than you can not be in jail and be in circumstances in which you just have to get the job done. You got to pay your bills. You got to feed your family. And also that you're in a position where things aren't, you know, going so well at the moment. So I actually quite like these. And I go, a lot of the times I use them because I don't do a lot of grand tableaus. And so with Kipper, I don't generally do grand tableaus. So you can see my extra ones are quite well worn as well. For the most part, I leave these in. So I think, let me finish this up real quick. I think that directionally, Sheer Marchetti has done a pretty good job. There's a couple exceptions there. And if that's really something that's going to bother your style of reading, I think that either read the way the cards are, or just use some, you know, get a red dot and mark your traditional movements, and I think either way you'll be perfectly fine. So I do think he's done quite a good job. In terms of comparing these, the big, to me, loss for this deck is simply that beautiful matte cardstock. So, you know, that's just gorgeous, just in terms of reading, terms of feel. It's just beautiful. Now, you know, word to the wise, do what I say, not what I do. You really shouldn't riffle shuffle Gilding, but that's not ever going to happen.